What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing all right out there. I just wanted to talk briefly about toxins, the brain, and well-being, and how the three are intertwined. So I wanted to start off with a few quotes just to set the stage for what I'm going to be talking about. The first one is from Jason Christoff, who is a health and sabotage expert. And essentially what that means is he's kind of like a life coach who helps his clients realize their full potential by helping them to overcome self-sabotage. The brain is a tribal-based machine. It really wants to follow, and the subconscious is a safety and security-seeking mechanism. The media has the job of misrepresenting what the majority is doing, and it hijacks our tribal nature to make us follow illogical and irrational methods by which we interface with the world. It makes people overweight, more depressed, and less financially vital. And I think in this instance, vital is synonymous with viable. Johann Hari, the author of Lost Connections, Uncovering the Real Causes of Depression and the Unexpected Solutions, made a similar claim in an interview I saw with him when he said that the whole machinery is built around making us feel inadequate and then making us buy the solution. My interpretation of what these gentlemen are saying is that the media and advertising, in order to sell a product, first sells us on an idea or belief. It leverages our desire to belong by making us feel silly, dumb, or alienated when our behavior or beliefs differ from the majority. To illustrate my point, I want to use a recent TV commercial from McDonald's as an example. And I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but it's the one where the basketball team is on the bus and the coach has hard-boiled eggs. And everybody is like, "Oh, what's that smell?" And one of the kids shouts out, "Coach has eggs again." In this instance, McDonald's is literally framing what breakfast should be in your mind. The implication is that, primarily because of the smell, hard-boiled eggs are an inconvenience to those around you, and by eating them, you're doing those people a disservice and ultimately alienating yourself. When in reality, hard-boiled eggs are a perfectly healthy breakfast, and as long as they haven't turned, don't stink like the commercial suggests. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to support that, based on nutritional and environmental considerations, you're actually doing yourself and others a bigger injustice by eating McDonald's breakfast than hard-boiled eggs. You can probably tell by now that I like a hard-boiled egg from time to time. Maybe that's why I got so triggered by this ad. But at the same time, it doesn't make the argument any less valid. So what can we do as individuals to break free of this conditioning and to reprogram the mind? I have two suggestions. The first is to stop the flow of mass media propaganda so messages don't cancel out. The best technique to do this is through meditation, which purges the mind of past impressions and programming. Meditation can calm down the amygdala when the fight or flight mechanism is activated. The second technique, and the one I want to focus on here, is to eat healthy. When you eat poorly, your digestive system registers that you poisoned yourself and turns on your limbic system, or reptilian brain. This is the part of the brain responsible for the low childlike IQ, instant gratification, and the flight or fight response. So what exactly is eating healthy? Well, for starters, instead of focusing on what you should be eating, you'll better serve your body and mind by considering what you shouldn't be eating. In today's world of industrial food production, this simply means avoiding foods that are high in toxins. This may appear easy on the surface, but when, according to research from the FDA, 63% of corn and 67% of soybean samples tested positive for glyphosate, a toxic chemical found in Monsanto's Roundup, it's clearly easier said than done. For those of you who don't know, the World Health Organization determined in March 2015 that glyphosate is probably carcinogenic to humans. While many consumers have some basic knowledge of the dangers of GMO crops, preservatives, and additives in packaged goods to increase shelf life, eating fresh, natural, or raw foods doesn't necessarily free your diet of toxins. Ditching highly processed foods for more natural ones is a step in the right direction, but there are still a number of things we ingest that can have toxic effects on the body. There's the obvious ones like monosodium glutamate, or MSG, and high fructose corn syrup, which have been under scrutiny for years because of their health risks, so I won't focus much on those here. The ones I want to talk about are the ingredients whose names seem less menacing but still pose adverse threats to health. The first of which is natural flavors, which are flavoring agents added to food products to improve taste. To be considered natural, the original source must be a plant or an animal. By contrast, the original source of an artificial flavor is a man-made chemical. And it's worth pointing out that all flavors contain chemicals, whether they're natural or artificial. In fact, every substance in the world is composed of chemicals, including water. Keeping that in mind, in addition to their original flavor source, these mixtures can contain more than 100 different chemicals, including preservatives, solvents, and other substances. These are defined as incidental additives. Food manufacturers aren't required to disclose whether these additives come from natural or synthetic sources, so as long as the original flavoring source comes from plant or animal material, it's classified as a natural flavor. To put the final nail in the natural flavors coffin, the term natural has no official definition, so flavors derived from genetically modified crops can also be labeled as natural. Another ingredient to be on the lookout for is caramel color, which can be found in Coca-Cola among many other foods. It's classified by the state of California as a known carcinogen and shown in animal testing to cause lung, liver, and thyroid cancer and leukemia. Even with the paleo or raw vegan diet, both of which champion whole foods over processed ones, you can still potentially be putting toxins into your body. Don't be fooled into believing that since something is labeled fresh or real, it is free of toxins. For both meat and produce, these terms are not synonymous with non-GMO or organic. Non-GMO essentially means what it claims, that the product's genetic makeup has not been artificially manipulated through genetic engineering, or GE for short. All GMOs are engineered for one or two traits, or a combination. These traits are herbicide tolerance, where a plant can be sprayed directly with a chemical pesticide like Roundup and survive, and 2, insecticide production, where a plant produces the Bt toxin so that if an insect eats any part of the plant, it will die. Genetically engineered crops, among other things that I don't want to mention in case you're eating, are common in animal feed. The implication is that GMOs make their way into the end product, such as eggs, milk, meat, honey, or seafood. Additionally, non-GMO really only means the product has not been genetically modified or does not contain any GM ingredients. Synthetic pesticides, herbicides like Roundup, sewage sludge, and the neurotoxin hexane, which is used to process canola, soybean, and corn oils, can all be par for the course in non-GMO labeled foods. So I want to use Chipotle as an example, and I very well might be barking up the wrong tree with this one, but the company has really emphasized its use of real and fresh foods in its advertising campaign lately, particularly in ads for the new Queso Blanco, which there's a good chance that you've seen. The company claims that all the food it serves is made only with non-GMO ingredients and that 100% of its meat comes from animals that had no added hormones. While I commend it for refusing to serve food made with GE ingredients and the exclusion of processed ingredients in the cheese sauce recipe, depending on your definition of real, this description is not 100% accurate. As I mentioned before, most animal feed in the U.S. is genetically modified, and the feed given to animals in Chipotle's supply chain is no exception. Only about half of its beef supply comes from cattle raised entirely grass-fed on pasture, and even less chicken supply, 38%, is fed non-GMO grain. There is really no way to know what exactly most of these animals are being fed. Best case scenario is genetically modified grains. Worst case scenario, I don't really want to even consider that myself. Whatever the cows are being fed, however, is making its way into the real Queso Blanco for your enjoyment. I know this may seem like nitpicking, and I hate to single out Chipotle because the strides it's making towards sustainability are deserving of praise. There are undoubtedly worse offenders out there in the fast food space. I only use this example to demonstrate the point that claims of fresh or real should not be misinterpreted to mean organic. So what characteristics constitute the much sought after USDA certified organic label? Certified organic food products must use no GMOs. They also can't contain synthetic pesticides or herbicides like Roundup. Hexane, a neurotoxin, and sewage sludge also are prohibited from inclusion in organic products. Finally, no growth-promoting antibiotics or hormones are permitted in foods seeking the organic certification. My recommendation in order to limit toxins is to make sure at the very least that you only buy products labeled non-GMO project verified, and ideally products that have a USDA certified organic label, as well as check the list of ingredients for the ones that I've mentioned. Eating well activates the prefrontal cortex of the brain, the part where self-esteem and self-confidence reside. If you give your brain something to go after, you activate the Einstein part of the brain, the left prefrontal cortex, which figures out how you can achieve and doesn't rule out any possibilities. By contrast, the right prefrontal cortex is responsible for thoughts of self-doubt. The brain's number one function is safety, and the default setting is negativity first for the sake of safety. It will remind you of the potential negative consequences first. But if you're not poisoned with toxins and your limbic system isn't raging out of control, you have the ability to shift the focus of what your brain is doing and ultimately how it works. You can shut down the fear circuit and activate the motivational circuit. If you can shift to having more positive thoughts, beliefs that you can, and ideas of how you can achieve, that becomes the new default setting. When the right prefrontal cortex is active, the brain is still a little worried for you to grow and try new things, to walk outside the herd, but it will give you a leash and will say, just be careful. By eating the right diet, you can help shut down the self-talk, self-doubting, fear-based mechanism of your brain and gain the ability to change your thought, belief, and behavioral patterns. You can then rewire your brain for achievement. When the worrisome thoughts that come with uncertainty and the tactics of how are silenced, you become capable of expressing goal-based positive thoughts and beliefs, and therefore have the ability to set yourself on the path to attainment.